0.9, which is a very exciting stepping stone on our way to SDXL 1.0. And it's kind of like our little mini release, showing you guys what we're up to on our way. And we have the lovely Ahmad, who has been kind enough to join us and talk to us today. So I say we just dive in, right? Maybe start with some of the like really basic questions that I think the community has been asking, that seem very basic, but I'm sure everyone sort of wants to know, basically like, where can we play with it, et cetera, et
Yeah.
cetera. And then we can move on to some more kind of like nuanced stuff that I'm sure the community is also very excited to talk about. So where can we play with it?
Yeah, so I think the community have been doing a great job in playing with it half the time on the Discord bot. So I think the
Yeah.
feedback's been super useful for iterating because for however good the base architectures are, like, it's like the deep learning process only takes you so far. To tune it to human preferences, you need to have this data, you need to have these fine tunes. And I think that's what the community's done with the fine tunes on the old stable diffusions a lot. Because what we tried to do with Stable Diffusion 2 was to have a very unopinionless model, like just complete clay. Whereas I think you need to try and find that balance, and Joe Penna and team on the applied side have really been leading that, even as kind of Robin Rombach and his team have been doing some amazing stuff on improving the architectures and scale, and things like that. So is my oh sorry.
No,
Um,
awesome.
yeah. So I think that that's been that case. So now you can play with it on ClipDrop today, and I believe tonight or tomorrow it'll be going live on the API and hopefully Dream Studio too. And then over the course of this week, the research weights will start be sending out to researchers. Now, the problem with the research weights was that basically it's not quite finished yet. There are lots of missing bits, and we're still trying to combine it from two models into one. That's what caused it to balloon a bit. But I think the reality is that we're still targeting a full 1.0 launch that will be significantly better by kind of mid-July-ish. That's about as close as I'm going to get with deadlines, kind of regarding that. The main release will be a creative ML license release, just like the original SD. So again, you can then take that and extend it and use it how you want. But for now, we're going to continue getting research feedback and community feedback via the API, via our partners, and of course via the Discord bot.
Wonderful. Perfect. And just to reiterate, because I see a couple people talking about it. So the weights and stuff that we are sending out are for a specific audience that we are sending them to ourselves. So it's kind of like our researchers, research people that are on our list and
Uh,
such, right? For this one.
Well, it's broader. So we had a research sign up page with 2,000 people signing up for the research weights. So, we'll go over it over the course of this week and start sending it out. Please don't share it because it's not finished. I know everyone's dying to get their hands on it, but we're going to be asking specific questions to the people who get the weights and then iterating back. Once we do the remain release, and again, it's still not finished. You went from 1.0 to 1.5 in the original Stable Diffusion. And so what you'll see is you'll see continuous improvement with periodic releases of this model, but then also other models that we've been working on, like SD3 and some of these other ones as well. This is basically a scaled up architecture with a few extra things, not a revamp. So there's other architectures, other models that we'll be releasing. And after the first release, again, it will be more of a continuous thing, but not like every single checkpoint. Because you've seen that like a whole community grew up around 1.4, 1.5. You don't want to keep changing the base model too much.
Yeah.
This is also why, we've been working with a whole bunch of people to make the fine tuning easier on this. And for the main release, we're looking, I believe I posted that comment from Mr. Guitarman Joe Penna, that, we're looking to around about the time of release also have the T2I models, the control net models, and some fine tunes from the leading fine tuners, as well as guides and things. So it'll be a lot hopefully smoother than last time, and we'll be providing grants and things like that for these extensions, as well as making it usable in Auto, in Comfy UI, and all of these other community-based entities.
Awesome. Yes. I know a lot of people have been asking about it and they're very excited about that, and having that out the gate. So yeah, it'll come, everybody. It'll come.
Okay.
Okay, great. I love that. I mean, we're we're getting all the information out fast. I love it.
I think
So
I mean, it's a constant learning process. I know a lot of
yeah,
people weren't happy about the last release and things, and I think we are a bit too ivory tower at times. The community team does a great job, but there hasn't been enough interaction with the researchers and transparency over the roadmaps because we didn't want to basically mess up again, to be honest.
yeah,
That was the main thing. I think, we're really trying to push forward kind of open multimodal models, and we have the audio models, language models, code models, and more kind of coming as well as video. But the first release is always the hardest because, again, you want to try and make sure and then have all the guides, everything kind of ready. Once it's out there, then you can just improve. But again, like improve it steadily as opposed to like that.
yeah, exactly. So I would love to also just go over some really basic questions about, and this is going to seem really basic, but people are asking about it. Like, what the differences are of like where people can use it when they do start using it. So, like tomorrow, right? It's going to be coming out on, or hopefully, like we're planning this week at least to get it out onto Dream Studio and the API and things like that. I know in the blog there was some talk about in painting, out painting, image to image, those sorts of things, and that just some clarification on like what the difference is between using XDXL and Clip Drop versus using it in Dream Studio, and how those features are kind of like integrated into the different platforms.
Yeah, so we're going to be unifying a lot of these into kind of one platform soon. That's part again of the growing up integration of various teams. But you can expect the same 0.95 model to do it across the basis. I posted a tweet a little while ago. I think it was from Dustin or one of the other team members that or really highlighted that SDXL is amazing and has been designed particularly for dynamic aspect ratioing and things like that. Also out of the box, it works really well on in-painting or uncropping, etc. Uh, but I think you should start with just one model, and then we're going to tune specific models, hopefully for release in mid-July and maybe after, and keep up to date with what the new models are because you see consistent changes sometimes underlying. People like to know which model it is so they can replicate the same things over and over. And that's again, I think, the beauty of the stable models as opposed to maybe some of the language model stuff where the output is stochastic. Same input leads to different outputs each time. So you can't kind of recreate the processes. The team have also been looking at, various kind of UIs like Comfy UI and others where you can really track the end-to-end process that you have. Like these are the seeds, these are the parameters I pick, these are transformations you undertake. And that will be really important with the new kind of instruct models, with the image to image, with kind of the segmentation and other things that'll be brought in. Because I think the next step is as we get a really amazing base model, what are all of the affordances and tools you build around that? But then again, like you said, can you see how you start from the original prompt and your whole creative process going there? Because I think it's great when you can just type in a few words and the image can come out. But as the Peter Gabriel competition showed, if you want to make really great things, it takes a bit of time, trial, error, etc. And that's proper creativity, right? Like we can raise the bar, but we want to give better tools, better interfaces for people to do that with, and we want to make them as much as possible, like with Stable Studio, open source, so you can take them and implement them yourselves if you want to, and then extend them as a community together.
Yeah, I think that's such a great example, the Peter Gabriel stuff. And also just like being a creative, you do want that, you want that feeling that you're putting something into it. So having a little bit of struggle is actually sometimes fun, at least for me. I don't know how other people feel about it.
Yeah, I
But
think you got the two different models here. So you have a really good construction model, and then you have an upscale, not upscale, a super refinement model.
yeah.
I think eventually, as we stabilize these, as we really kind of hone in on the data, I don't know if Joe or some of the Reply team are joining today, but they can talk about their data segmentation analysis and how they looked at 128 different clusters to find out which ones are mostly used. We're going to have like just a mixture of different models that are amazing for different things. Yeah, there's Joe. Call him and
Speak
so he
of the
comes.
devil and he comes. I was just about to say,
Yeah.
speaking of the XDSL team, we do have some of them here if they wanted to pop up and start talking to us. Hello, Joe. I
Hello.
think you got queued in. Do you want to jump in on what you got queued in on, or?
Sure, yeah. Yeah, like what Matt's saying is right. Like we saw like that the adoption of 1.5 was one thing, and then 2.0 was another thing, and then that marketing is a thing, like, is the architecture better for the two models? Is it, yes, it is, but like, the community needed, to, there was like this kind of fracture that happened. So, with this one, yeah, we've been really focused in, like, Robin has really been focused in, along with Ahmad, on the research bits of it, like making sure that the researchers are, getting the weights now, and that, the architecture is, you're working out in that way. But also, something that's been just as important is getting the weights over to, the people who build the trainers, the people who, and hiring in some of these people from the community. The entirety of the applied team, I think, except for one person, was hired from the community. Oh, no, that person's gone. The entirety of the applied team was hired from the community, myself included.
Yay.
So, and it's just people who were doing amazing stuff that were like, you come over here and, let's get to work on this. So they're people who, can approach the model from a different way, and it's something that, research and now applied have been working really, really closely together. I spent the some of last week along with some of the team, as they were in this massive conference, computer vision and pattern recognition conference, and, it was a new kind of thing for me, like, where people are literally explaining, like, different things about, like, mathematical equations, and I would just kind of like nod and be like, no, of course, yes, softmax is such a big issue with, whatever, so, that's one approach, and that's incredibly valid, and what built these models to begin with. But then there's also the, like, but did we forget horses? Horses don't look good quite yet, or planes, like, how can we make planes look better? And that's going to be equally valid, I think.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay, so thank you guys for hopping up, because I did want to get some sort of into some of the more nitty gritty, and obviously you are the folks that have your hands in this as much as anyone else does. So I was actually talking to Mick Monkey earlier, or they had mentioned, and we had sort of been dancing around fine tunes and weights and running it locally, or all these kind of things that you guys in the team know better than anyone else right now, because you're the ones who've been working with it. And so I'd love for you to share some of the things that you were talking about earlier, if you would mind, or want to, or don't want to. I don't know.
So, there's a lot of concern naturally with SDXL being so much bigger of what kind of computer do you need to have to run it?
Right.
And we confirmed not too long ago, just to generate images, that 8 gigabytes of VRAM is good enough. And I confirmed literally last night and posted on Reddit, and I'll put the link in stage chat, that you can actually train a LoRa at full 1024 by 1024 at rank 8 on an RTX 2070 that has only 8 gigabytes of VRAM. And that's
like
so
the
not only
equivalent
that,
of
but
Why did I go
Prius
buy my
going
3090
at
then?
400 miles an hour. I don't know how you did that, man. That's crazy.
Should I
So-
return the GPU I just bought? No.
Yeah. 3090 is still useful. You can still go higher. You still have
Right.
higher, lower ranks do full fine tuning actually on a 3090. Just barely. You can train the full model just barely. Literally 23 point something gigabytes of VRAM used. Is dangerously close, but it fits. So if you have a 2070 or a 3060, which is pretty affordable, or as someone in the SDXL chat here was saying earlier, a laptop 3070, I think is what they had, which has 8 gigabytes of VRAM. Any of that is good enough. You can train the model, and you can run it.
Wow.
You're good.
That's
Yeah, I think
Go
I'd
ahead.
also note that, SDXL is a bit like GPT-4 in a way that it was a massive bulk up, and then after you bulk, you cut. So I think what we're going to see is there's been some amazing work done by the team, like Harry and a whole bunch of others, on far more optimized data sets. Like one of the things that we funded on the open side was Datacomp, a 12 billion image data set, bigger than even Lion. And the 1 billion subset of that on a tenth of the compute outperformed OpenAI's CLIP. So, we're funding lots of research around this as well as doing our own research of how can we get better data sets. Then also you've got other kind of open initiatives that we funded like Wursten, which basically they're training an SD1 level model on a tenth of the compute of the original. And so we started to see the first results out of that. So one of our real goals is to make this as accessible as possible, running on MacBooks and things like that through better data, better architectures and refinement. But first of all, I think we needed to work together as a team, amazing research team, applied team, and others, to get to that level of quality and control that people wanted, right? And then you go and increasingly make it accessible. Because I think, Joe, you mentioned like when you first kind of did the Dream Booth code and put that out to the world, it took like 40 gigabytes of VRAM, right?
That was crazy, and I have kept my Dream Booth as the dinosaur that like I would check every single PR, and if it was seed to seed perfect, I would keep it. And people would just got it down from 36, I think was at first, to just under 24. Close Chrome before you start training with my dinosaur. Then again, like people nowadays train on their Apple Watches. So it's a matter of time, and the architecture that we have now for SDXL 0.9 is going to change before we put out 1.0. So like these benchmarks that we're talking about now is all with the like, hey, this is kind of, it's like this kind of thing, it's like asking how much water can a jar hold as it's still being built, so yeah, things change and things are gonna evolve, and they're gonna evolve quickly because that's what the community does, that's what the researchers do. More papers are gonna come out about like, hey, we changed this one little number and all of a sudden it's way better, but here's all this crazy VRAM. One thing that I want to make clear though is that this is likely, and we're testing now, probably one of the state of the art models of the world. So like, it's okay for you to just be on SD 1.5, doing your little things that you're doing there. Like I still use SD 1.5 for certain things. I still can use realistic vision to clean up some things every once in a while. This is for the people who want the Ferrari, the people who want the big hulker, and you're gonna need some better compute for that, but eventually people will get it down. We can expect it to be like that, imagine that we are October of last year, which is about 92 billion AI years ago. It'll go quick.
It'll go quick. That's always the answer, really. It's amazing how fast things evolve. Okay, wonderful. Well, thank you guys so much for coming up here and just going over all of the basics with us so we can get a good groundwork of what's happening. But of course, we have a lot of people in the audience who have their own questions. So I think we should just head over there and start answering some of the pinned questions that's going to go up. I see Joe had a pinned question. Joe, did you want to know who the most handsome person working on SDXL
Did that get pinned? No, I think that the answer is clear. We can move on from that one.
Okay, great. Yeah, I mean, why ask a question when it's already so obvious? Everyone can make their own judgments on that. Okay, so let me go over. So obviously we have some really broad questions, and we want to answer all of them for everybody. So Buddha is asking a question I'm pretty sure I know the answer to. Do you plan to integrate stable LLM and stable diffusion in a similar way to Bing Chat with DALL-E?
Yeah, that would be pretty cool to do. Yeah, we're kind of distracted with like 12 other projects.
Yeah.
But I really, really want to do that. I think there's a lot of potential there, and we really want to explore it.
Yeah, we have
there you
actually
go.
got language model UI built by the team already, ready to go. And we're just lining up the new release of Stable LM, the beta, to go with that. So I think last week or the week before, we released our Llama replications up to 13 billion parameters, and we just finished 20 billion. So they're the most performant base models, and the CARPA team, the RLHF team, are working on the chat model side of that. After we've got those ready, we should be able to create a nice instruct model. And like I said, we've also already written the front end code that we'll also open source around that. And then boom, there's the ingredients that you need to mix in. But there's lots of mixing going at the moment. The kitchens are cooking.
Yeah. And then boom. I like that. Awesome. Wonderful. So Mr. Chris is asking, what's the main improvement in SDXL that you guys have noticed from what you did before so far? If you have. Anybody? Main differences, main improvements between SDXL and some of these others?
I think the prompt comprehension is pretty big one for this model. I bet some of you that played with the bot noticed that prompts are being followed way better. For me, I think it also performs better than other models on the market. It's certainly a very big improvement on the stuff that you can create. And, you know, a lot of these AI generations are unlocking creativity. And being able to talk to the model in natural language, I think is an important thing from the data set to the user actually generating stuff. And it's been really awesome to see all the awesome things people did on the bot.
Yeah, I'm really glad that actually got brought up because I thought that was really important how much the prompt languaging has changed. It's really interesting and really cool to see. Big Mon- did you put your hand up,
Oh.
Big Monkey,
Yeah,
to say
hi.
something? Okay,
I
cool.
wanted to say something in answer to that question. One of, I think, the bigger things about what makes SDXL so special is the minimum bar of what it's capable of. Like, using SD version 1, you'll spend like 2 hours carefully prompt crafting and in painting and all of that. And then you go in SDXL and you just type in a person, and what it outputs is going to be better. Or at least equal.
Yeah.
And that's the minimum bar. That's the minimum effort, and it competes with the top of SDV1. Once you put in more effort, it's even better.
Yeah, I imagine when people have the control nets and things like that for a model that's where the base is that much better, right? That will be able to get to where they're going a lot faster, which is going to have a lot of implications for artists that are working with this. People getting exactly what they want, and also will likely lower the amount of compute. We're not blind to the fact that it's, there's an impact to the amount of energy that's used. Like think about something like Lenza. They were doing one dream booth per person, and that's a lot of heat that's made, and we got to take care of our planet. So that's why we are being really, really slow about what we call 1.0. It's in terms of like, here we go. Let's have that go out in a way that most people can just use the base model and be happy. And then maybe download a couple LoRa's, a couple textual inversions, and train the little things that they care about and do it. And then we can just be all happy and
We can all be happy and wonderful. Yes.
I think as well, like you've seen this stuff pushing to the edge. I mean, we'll get there onto the MacBooks and things like that. He said kind of reduce energy consumption, increase kind of creativity. And we're not sure what the bottom edge is. It's just we had to get to that quality bar first before then you optimize. I mean, look, like I said, we're going to do our best mid-July. Again, release dates, we tried to, for example, release it distilled, but it just wouldn't be coherent enough. And once you distill a model, you can't fine-tune it. We've still got that code that we hope to release shortly, maybe distill XL. If we have to release a 0.95, we'll release a 0.95, Again, unfortunately, 1 is kind of a big number, and we don't want to mess up. But then once these things are released, then hopefully we just continuously improve and then just have periodic like benchmark releases that you can build around. So even as we put out kind of the research weights and there's the initial thing, I'd say just give it a little bit before you do huge things on it. And again, that's why we're really trying to figure out a nice grant program for fine tuners and things like that. So people can experiment without kind of putting huge amounts of resource in before everything's stabilized a little bit. And then we can have a nice model that everyone's proud of as a benchmark, and then we'll just create another benchmark and another benchmark and more beyond there.
Yeah, hopefully. Okay, so before I go on to some more questions, I just see that people are chatting within the chat that's within this stage as if this is Twitch. Just so you know, if you are chatting there and you're kind of like, why isn't anyone responding to me? It's because we are all in the stage chat. It's actually a channel that's right above center stage. That's where our mods are. That's where everyone is. So if you have a question and you want it to get pinned, throw it in there. Leave the chat that's like part of the stage, if that makes sense. Okay, so Hassan has a question. He wants to know if you can speak about what NSFW filtering or exclusion data exists within SDXL, if any. It seems to be capable of producing some of that content compared to like 2.1 or et cetera.
So 0.9 is a combination of lots of different data sets. And so it makes it matching. This kind of includes proprietary and other ones right now. It learned really quickly. I think it's probably the best that we can say about it. So we're going to really see more details about the whole trading process right now. I think a lot of people said that, like not NSFW is required for anatomy and things. I think from our tests, we can see that it's actually kind of not. But right now it is this big amalgam of things that will then be adjusted, and it's incredibly tunable, I think would probably put the right way to put it. In that, yeah, it learns very, very quickly, shall we say.
Cool.
I think as well, kind of where we're going is you've seen things like style drop, you've seen kind of some of these other advances come through. The importance of tunes and Dreambooths, even LoRa's, is going to diminish dramatically over the remainder of this year. You're basically getting to real-time inferencing, and retrieval-based models is another area that we have one of the best people working on. So yeah, let's just say that I think these models like really talented grads that occasionally go a bit funny. They're picking up lots of new tricks and becoming less set in their ways, shall we say.
That's such a good point. That style drop thing is freaking insane. Going to go through a whole new evolution. Okay, so here's a question about why XDXL is faster with high resolution inference. That somebody up here sort of asks, but maybe wants somebody
for Alex.
That's for Alex.
Jan also figured that out. Yeah.
Just that one. There's that thing that Joe posted. That picture there
That's
of comfy writing, where one of the higher attention layers is not there. Basically, so the model is bigger, but there are different parts of the model. Some of the parts of the model are exponential, meaning as you go bigger, they take way more and more time, whereas other parts are linear. They don't take nearly as much. And so while the overall model is bigger, we actually got rid of one of those exponentially growing parts. And so as a result, it ends up still being faster.
For now. We might put it back in. Why not? It's fun.
Yeah.
Put it back in.
Dustin wanted to put it back in.
Fabulous. Sorry, I got distracted because now I'm reading the chat too. Okay, here's a question from Flavio. I hope I pronounced that right. Probably not. How is the new model in terms of memory consumption compared to 1.5? And we may have answered that already. But say it again.
It's more. It's not as much more as you'd be worried about.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah, I think if there's a will, there's a way. If anything, this community has shown us it's that they'll be willing to do a lot of stuff to get these models to run on the 1080s of the world or something like that.
Cool.
Yeah, I think as well, once you've got this model, you can instruct smaller models. I think this is the important part. So you've seen this in the language model space where, you've got Orca, you've got Vicuna, these other things that take the outputs of the really big GPT-4 type models and use it to instruct smaller models. But you need to have that one first. And so this SDXL 0.9 model is, I would say, a bit of a Frankenstein amalgam. Mess of different things. I think it's been training since February in various kind of forms. But then we got to that point, once you actually deconstruct its constituent parts, as Yam kind of said, there is a lot of optimization that we can do around this. So once we get kind of models of different types for portraits or architecture and other things like that, I think you can get literally an order of magnitude improvement in performance and computational complexity. So I think that's super exciting, but you need to get to this level first, right? Before you send it to master's program or whatever, right? Or to finishing school.
Finishing school. Yeah. Does finishing school happen anymore? It probably does.
Yeah, here in England it does. What can I say?
It does. I should go to one of those. Okay, so so JJ6060 has an interesting question. That maybe you guys know who have been playing with this the most. Is XDXL have you noticed it being any better than 1.5 at staying consistent between generations? Like if trying to create multiple frames of a 2D animation or a character or something like that.
We've been seeing some really really early tests from the people who put together the forum and things like that. It's still yet to be seen. Pretty much every single model that isn't conditioned on video, that doesn't have an understanding of what frames per second are, that wasn't shown multiple frames back to back to back, is a trick. It's you're doing little tricks to remove the little errors, but it's every single image by itself, right? Or you can do a bunch of little hop, skips, and jumps and use a different model to do the little in-betweeners, like they do for some animation shows. So for now, it might do better, it might not do better, probably will do somewhat better, especially with things like control nets, and now reference only. If you use both of those together, then yeah, that can really really work super well. But the best video models will definitely be the ones that are built to be video models that start from image models, but those will that will be the clearest, right?
You can see kind of the video work that Robin, Andreas, and Tim, who are all at Stability, did at NVIDIA. And they took SD 2.0 and turned that into a video consistency model. And so maybe someone could post a link to that. So like I said, all Stability now, this is what they did before. But I think that if you want to have the full temporal consistency, you will need to have multiple model modes interacting with each other. The ways we interact with these models right now is quite dumb. And that's why I'm really hoping that, as we accelerate this out and build out components for the front end, you can start chaining these together. So one of the things that I think has just got released, or it's about to be released, is we collaborated on Objaverse XXL, which is tens of millions of 3D models permissively licensed, because you need that for things like 3D datasets. Once you combine image, temporal coherence, things like deforum with 3D, and the ability to kind of exchange between them, that when you imply some of these control nets, instruct, segmentation, and other models, that's what you really need. You need the ability to control the various bits, move them in and out, and adjust them dynamically. And then you'll have, I think, really amazing video in, I think, a year from now. Like, again, we revisit that amazing Peter Gabriel competition a year from now. I think you will have ridiculous levels of control, and within a week or two, people will create stuff that takes months now. I think that's super exciting. But yeah, I think there are benefits to this one. There are benefits to smaller models, but you can expect an explosion of different model types to emerge from this. And again, I think part of what we need to do at Stability, hopefully, is what we failed to do last time, which is provide really excellent guides, really excellent guidelines, and patterns around how you can get the most out of these. And then see what the community does on the back of that.
Yeah.
And I think the question also wanted to discuss stuff like character sheets for like characters and having consistent. I actually saw yesterday on the bot channel some people prompting for them. It does look considerably better than what we saw on previous models. And I do believe that the new architecture is better at creating consistent character sheets and face sheets and stuff like that for production purposes.
Awesome. Very cool. Okay, I've got a doozy. Are you guys ready? It's going to be super exciting. What Jawrail is asking, what's the general workflow in building a big model like SDXL? Are you always training 24/7 a single model, or do you try 50 different things, then only move forward with models that see advancements, etc., etc.? What's the behind the scenes story? Tell us all the tea. Is that what it's? I don't know. What do the kids call it?
There's entire research papers written on ablations for large language models and video models. Yeah, the applied team has just gotten base models from Robin's team, which is the research team, and what the research team has been doing for now by themselves, but now we're also going to start doing lots of this, is different tests. We just come up with an idea. Okay, what is our final point that we're trying to get to, right? And let's start all the way from here in nowhere land, right? And then you're just trying a bunch of models that are possibly the ugliest models in the world, but you're trying a bunch of different little things, right? And all of these ugly models, you say like, which one's the least ugly model? Well, which one is the one that listens the best? Which one's the one that does this and this? And I can't tell you how many ugly images I have looked at in my life, because like Joe Biden looking like he is made of sparkles. You've got like all these like test prompts that we run over here to figure out like which one of this is the winner, right? And it's stuff that like the community is like, oh my God, release those things. Like you don't want to see that stuff. You don't want to. No one will ever use that model, like, because then from that you start then doing the same thing, but like you take that point and then you go on, so these kinds of like these branching trees. And we have some graphs that we made from the bots tests on Discord with all of these like little lines going everywhere, and they kind of just all start converging into one place, and eventually you get like these things up there. So throughout this process, we've had models that were way better than what we have right now at photographic stuff. But they sucked at everything else, right? And we've had way better models that were great anime things, and not because of only the data that or they were trained them, but just really the architecture. Yeah, they're better at drawing little lines around people and things like that, because of what it grew up learning, and how it learns, So a lot of it is trying to think of these models as very precocious but annoying little toddlers. And you're trying to figure out the best way to raise that certain thing, right? And right now, the community has really taken these base models of the past and done different things with them. And we've tried to figure out, like, so what are the things that we can do to make that base model better for the community, to do those same things to this model. So things like, we saw that LoRa's and Dream Booths were really popular, so we started training some LoRa's and Dream Booths on some older architectures, and seeing which model does better, which one of those ugly models does better with LoRa's and Dream Booths. So so it's not 24/7 that's training, but what we like as much as possible to just have the GPUs burrowing on something, because that means that there's always like forward progress. Different ways of going about it, looking at the different graphs that show loss and looking at samples, and historically, if you just look at little graphs, you don't really get to get an understanding of what this is, and it's little things that we're constantly figuring out. Just yesterday, one of the people on my team, two of the people on my team actually, they figured out that there's a way of doing this like crazy thing where you put in an image and like a bunch of random words spit out, right? And it's like, what are those? And then you copy those words into the model, and it makes something that's kind of like that initial image, right? So that's got like Oh, okay. You can do almost like a textual inversion on a single image, right? And then there's different ways of thinking about like how to implement that, right? And why that's happening, and how do we get it to spell better? How do we get it to do hands? We don't actually. I don't know if we figured out how it started doing hands. It just started doing them. So maybe we just like asked it nicely enough, I think. Who knows?
Who knows?
The resolution increase definitely helps with hands because of the compression being less than the older models.
Yeah, that's something we end up finding, right? Is that like higher resolution models are better at details. Who would have thought? When you have a bigger canvas, you can be a little bit more detailed.
Yeah, we're very lucky to have all these resources, instability, all the GPUs. So internally in the team, we have a lot of tests running all the time. From new research that just came out, we share like all the resources are crazy between us, and try to see how we can improve this model, especially for the upcoming release. So we have people on our team that like MacMonkey that did LoRa test yesterday to see if we can actually train it on consumer hardware. And at the same time, we have various other members in the team doing different training runs using different parameters, different data ingestion tactics, from speed ups, from training speed ups to quality increases. We operate on many levels when we make these models, for sure.
Ugh, you guys have such cool jobs. So cool. I love hearing all about it. Okay, so a couple other questions before we wrap up. We've got about 15 more minutes. So Retropunk asks a question sort of regarding around the commercial / terms of service for the SDXL. So saying any updated terms of service and or commercial terms for the SDXL. Our clients like what Adobe is doing with Firefly terms of service. It'd be nice to know if you guys will be able to compete in that regard, etc.
I think there's an updated terms of service on the way for the main release, which will also be available on AWS with our new Bedrock service and others. Aside from that, we're creating special fully licensed versions. A opt-out version as promised coming because this training for this model started before the opt-outs, and also some new synthetic data sets. It turns out synthetic data is actually very good for these models, which is surprising. So I think you'll see a constant evolution of these. But yeah, from the terms of service perspective, I think the TOS from what we had before was pretty permissive, and again, it will be a continuous improvement depending on what people want. I think it should be one of the things I tell the team is that we are not aggressively trying to sell this as a product because you've still got a year across all these models of it being a research artifact. The fact that it's already useful and valuable and hundreds of millions are being made off these models is amazing in itself. And so we're playing a bit of a long game here, which is, just make sure that once you get to enterprise readiness, you're really right there. Make sure you have the ecosystem built around it, make sure you have all the tools and you've got the ways of using it. Because when you prematurely try to monetize something that's not ready, you got a worst of all worlds, and then it's a real distraction from the real stars who are the developers and engineers and fine tuners out there, plus the community kind of working together on that. So I think we're doing our best, and working with partners like Amazon and others, we'll make sure that it's as widely available for commercial and personal use as possible.
Lovely. Thank you. Okay, so moving on to Artificial Guy BR. I especially like how they phrased their question. It's a very nice little story. Okay, so they say, okay, let's fast forward a few weeks. SDXL 1.0 has launched. Let's fast forward maybe farther than a few weeks, we don't know. But let's fast forward. It's launched. What will the focus of the image team be after this? A new SD, a text to video, launching specialized models, photorealistic digital art. What can we expect?
All of the above.
All of the above. Love it. There's the answer. All of the above. Wow, I was hoping that was going to take longer, but it didn't.
Yeah.
Okay.
To
Cool.
kind of give an update, between the research team and the applied team, we now have 86 people working on these models. And we just got a load of H100s, which are always nice. Hopefully you won't melt those ones.
Today I learned. Oh, I see him now actually. All right.
Yeah,
Let's grab
surprise,
'em.
Joe.
Oh,
Yeah, I think most people know Joe and us as the SDXL team, but we're actually called the Applied ML, and we're tasked with taking these wonderful models that research brings up with these new architectures and making them like something people would want to use in the community, and fun stuff and looking good and all that. So you'll definitely see us working on the video models and stuff like that, and whatever Stability has next.
Yeah, we have dedicated teams being set up in all the chip manufacturers as well, because again, the goal is real democratization, and the way that you do that is you make it usable on what people have. You shouldn't have to have special hardware to run models that you own, and so that's part of the real focus of this. Like I said, I think one of the things with SDXL is all of the team is really super happy about the quality of the outputs, but we know we can do better. And we know we can do better with less. So this is a real kind of bulk moment, and we're putting it out there because we think that it will make people more creative and they'll create great things, but it will not be that big, that bulky, and have that much craft in it in 6 months. I think that it will be kind of streamlined, again, bulk and then cutting. And then, like I said, there's brand new architectures like what the team are working on with SD3 and others. It's just you got to start putting stuff out, and you got to keep on moving the boundaries. And this is why we are continually hiring and expanding out our team to enable this. And I think you've seen the success. Like, I think there was just before the Mid Journey, they've done something like $250 million in revenue in the last year. And David has done an amazing job there. Like, we funded the Mid Journey beta, remember, way back in the when no one else would back them, because I thought it was amazing what they were doing, and they've done something amazing. But he wants it to be a research lab, so who's going to make the technology available to everyone, and make it open source so they can own it? He continues his way, and it's our job to try and fill this in and create the building blocks that people can build off. And that unfortunately requires quite a lot of different things, all the above. But then having a team that can do all that, I think, is pretty amazing. And we're really fortunate to have some great people from all sorts of backgrounds working super hard at this, because it is great.
I'm excited for Midjourney V6 to drop soon after SDXL drops.
Yeah, well, 5.2 dropped just last week, eh? A few hours after.
Yeah,
It's always
5.2.
that way.
The same day,
The
Yeah.
same
Same
day,
day.
yeah.
For some
day.
reason, they're going to update it the same
like
day.
a few hours, I think.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah. You got
Now
Apple,
they
you got
take it.
Androids, right? You got Apple, you got Android. But I mean, again, like I think it's fundamentally two different organizations doing different things, even if it is kind of image, And again, David's aim and Midjourney's aim is to build a real-time 3D video engine for video games, which would be freaking awesome. And so it's going to get bigger and bigger. He's got the resources now to do it.
Very cool. As I said, I just sit up here and I listen to you guys talk, and I just get a little jelly because it all sounds so awesome. You guys get to work doing some really incredible stuff, and I'm jealous. That's 100% what the truth is there. So I wanted to thank you all for coming up and giving us